Hey everybody! So today we're going to talk about the north and south nodes in the 1st and 7th houses. Now, before I start, I do want to add the disclaimer that I've added with the other ones. Sorry, it's kind of windy. That I added with the other ones that what I'm going to say here may not completely translate to your chart. Like there may be things that are accurate if you have your north and south nodes in the 1st and 7th houses, but this should just be used as something to jog your own creative process, your own intuition, all of those kinds of things. Don't take them verbatim that this is exactly what the north node or the south node in the 1st and 7th houses will always be. These were just some ideas that you can play with. Just want to make that clear off the bat. So, okay, let's start with, let's say you've got your south node in the 7th house. Okay, so the house is like the area of life, the backdrop, the environment, all of those kinds of things from either a previous lifetime lens or what you felt comfortable coming into this life with, or, the environment that you felt comfortable coming into this life with. Either way, it's comfortable, whether you believe in the past life thing or not, but there's something comfortable about this house. So in the case of the south node and the 7th, you're looking probably at previous lifetimes that dealt quite a bit with relationships. How those relationships went, that's a whole other thing. You'd have to look at the whole chart. Same thing with, whatever sign is on the 7th house, right? Whatever sign the south node is in, or whatever sign the south node is in will, give you an idea as to how that went. Same thing with where the planetary ruler of the south node falls. I mean, people automatically, I want to mention this too. There's this misconception that when you have your south node in the 7th house, that puts your north node in the 1st house, that means that you can't have relationships in this lifetime, or you're not supposed to have relationships in this lifetime. I want to clear that up. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. There might be indicators of how to have better relationships, perhaps, because with the south node, you always kind of want to veer on the side of something being challenging. So having a south node in the 7th house could mean that relationships consumed your whole life. And this could be any type of relationship, really. This could be romantic relationships, this could be close friendships, this could be business partnerships, this could be sometimes even family relationships, especially if say the planetary ruler of the south node is in the 4th house. That could point to more like family sort of relationships dominating your life or being a big part of your life. It's very possible. I've also seen every once in a while parent-child relationships will pop up in this house. I don't mean that like a creepy incestuous way, but perhaps I don't mean it like that. I mean, I guess something like that could be the case. You'd have to take the whole chart into account, but I don't when I say that, I don't mean it like that. I just mean like the close relationships that you have with your children or with your parents were very, very important to you from this previous lifetime lens. That's possible too. So yeah, relationships were a major backdrop in your life in this previous lifetime, or you come into this world comfortable with the notion of relationships. Sorry, doesn't necessarily mean that you do them well or that they are easy for you, but they are comfortable. So then we'd be looking at the north node in the 1st house. North node in the 1st house, I will say this. this lifetime probably is supposed, not universally, but there probably is a need for the person to focus more on themselves. I don't mean they turn into a selfish asshole. That's not what I'm telling you North Node first housers to do. But there probably is, in some way, too much focus on relationships and not enough focus on yourself. Now, how that actually manifests, again, depends on the whole chart, but there usually is a need to get to know yourself better. Use your instincts, your own instincts. Become comfortable with your own impulses. Your own physical body is another thing that is you probably wanted to grow into being comfortable, understanding, and knowing. Your personality, the development of your personality is very important. Your development of your personality independent of these close relationships. It is not universal, but because the South Node in the 7th has so much of an emphasis on relationships, sometimes too much of the personality is wrapped up in those relationships. So the self-discovery of the personality is a big deal here. Of course, you'd want to look at the planetary ruler of the North Node to give you a better idea as to what that mission looks like, right? Along with the sign that the North Node falls in, and those sorts of things. Obviously, squares the axis and all that. But yeah, with the North Node in the first, there is definitely a need to develop one's personality, individual personality. Yeah, and also, well, obviously identity goes along with personality. It kind of goes hand in hand with that. And there might be like because the first house is like the house of new beginnings, there might be a sense of starting anew in this lifetime. That's always possible too. That doesn't necessarily mean that you are a young soul or anything like that. I'm not saying, but there is a sense of newness, of starting new, of starting fresh maybe, that you wanted to grow into. Okay, so let's flip it. Let's say you've got the South Node in the first house. Okay. South Node, first house. Okay, so I see, and again, this is also another misconception, that when you have the South Node in the first and the North Node in the 7th, that means that you're not supposed to focus on yourself at all in this lifetime, and you're totally supposed to focus on partnerships. That's not necessarily true. That's not always true. It certainly could be, depending on what's going on in your chart. Maybe there was way too much self-focus in your most previous lifetime, or you come into this world just in general being more self-focused. Perhaps if it was overkill, if it seems like it's an overkill kind of sense, maybe then you are supposed to kind of go the other way. But it doesn't always mean that you take the complete focus off of yourself. It doesn't always. So that is a misconception that I wanted to bring up, because it is something that I see on like forums and stuff, like, oh, my South Node is in the first house. That means that I was like an egotistical, selfish asshole in my previous lifetime. Maybe, I don't know. You'd have to take the whole thing into account. It's possible. I wouldn't rule it out, but I also wouldn't say that it's a universal thing, because I've read charts for clients that had South Nodes in the first house, and it did not appear to me that they were selfish assholes in a previous. It just didn't seem that way. So I just want to throw that out there. But there probably is something going on with your identity, with your personality, with your sense of self, with your physical body, things like that does kind of keep you stuck somehow. because, you know, we want to veer on the side of caution, or not caution, but veer on the side of more challenging things with the South Node. So it might keep you more stuck, or you just might be really comfortable in the first house, you know, in the first house things. So yeah, you probably are looking at something like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean you were like a selfish asshole or anything like that. Okay, so that would put the North Node in the 7th house. And the North Node in the 7th house has a desire to, or wanted to, grow into learning and understanding partnerships, close relationships with friends, with, you know, very close friends, close relationships with romantic partners, close relationships with family, if family seems to fit there for close relationships, business partnerships, all of those kinds of things. The person wanted to grow into understanding those kinds of relationships better. But it would depend on the entire chart as to if that means completely moving away from being more self-focused, or if it's more of a balance. And honestly, I've seen people say, oh, it's always a balance. Or I've seen some people say, oh, it's always moving one way or the other, moving to one axis or the other. And I honestly think it really does depend on the whole chart. Some charts I've seen, it's very clear the person needed to move fucking far away from that South Node, all the way over to the North. And they needed to leave. There wasn't balance that was needed here. They needed to move all the way over to the North Node and leave all that shit in the South Node behind. That does happen. I do think more often than not, there is a balance that is needed. But I wouldn't say it's always balance. It's not. Sometimes you wanted something so different from what you had before, and it's not about balancing. But I will say, I think more often than not, it is about balance. I think it really depends on the whole chart. Perhaps things, you know, when there's not a balance that's needed, I find that that's usually in the person's chart, there's something so off balance already. And this is just for the North Node and North Node, South Node axis in general, not so much this axis, but just the 1st and 7th axis, just in general. But sometimes the person is so, it appears that their South Node was so engulfing that they literally can't keep anything from it. They need to go the other way, completely the other way. But that doesn't happen. That's not what I see most often, but I wouldn't rule it out as a possibility. But it's not what I happen to see most often. Anyway, I'm gonna get going because this is kind of long. If you are watching this on YouTube, you can find us on Instagram at Let's Fuck With Astrology. I am at Saturn Season Astrology on Instagram. Natalie is at Abaturno Astrology on Instagram. If you're watching this on Instagram and you want to search for us on YouTube, you can go to Let's Fuck With Astrology, searching for it in the search bar. If you do the Reddit thing, you can find us on the subreddit Let's Fuck With Astrology. And if you're interested in the star cards, you can go to letsfuckwithastrology.com/star-cards. Okay, I'll see y'all later.